If they're going in the right direction, which is generally up and consistent, then that's a good sign. Well, I was married to his son, Peter, for 12 years. And during those years, I was a businesswoman. I was president of my husband's and my company. And it was a music company. But I learned many things during that time from Warren, because all Warren talks about is business, and you can't help but learn. And also, we have at family gatherings throughout the year. There were titans of industry that would come, Katharine Graham from the Washington Post, the like, that we would just sit around and you couldn't help but pick up pearls of wisdom from him. And he loves to teach, so it was a great teacher, yeah. I would call Warren Buffett a selective contrarian investor. And basically that word means contrarian, going against what the general public is doing. Warren doesn't listen to the banter of Wall Street. One of the reasons I believe he lives in Omaha, Nebraska is because he keeps himself away from the market makers, the people who are pushing this stock and that stock. Warren's idea of a group decision is looking in the mirror. In other words, he's probably only talks to Charlie Munger, his partner, and then he makes the final decision. So he's different because he doesn't buy on good news, he doesn't speculate, he stays within his circle of competence, and that's what is big with him. And that means that he invests in companies that if he were just to buy one share of, he invests as if he were going to buy the entire company. So he looks at it from that perspective. So in other words, he's very cautious about the kind of company that he understands what the business is like, what the management is like, that they're honest and loyal, that they have the shareholders' interest in mind. But really, it also has to do with the earnings of a company. Right. And he looks at a company over a 10-year period of historical earnings. And if they're going in the right direction, which is generally up and consistent, then that's a good sign. So he would say something like, I look for companies that I can reasonably predict what they're going to be doing in 15 years' time. Take Wrigley's chewing gum. I don't think the internet is going to change the way people chew gum. And I know gum is not very popular in Singapore. So but the company is a great company. So instead of speculating on, let's say, an industry that could have a lot of change, like the internet companies, or an industry like the automobile industry that has to take all of its profits and put them back into retooling for the next year's new car, he'd rather have a company like Hershey's Chocolate, Coca-Cola, Wrigley's Gum that just don't have to retool anything. They take all their profits and they buy like-minded businesses, like Coca-Cola buying water companies, other companies, or they repurchase their shares once if the stock market has a bad news phenomena, a recession, a war, something like that, some bad news, and the price of the stock goes down for whatever reason. And then they repurchase the shares. They have that cash in order to repurchase the shares, and then that increases the underlying value of the stock over a period of time. No. Warren picks businesses that the stock market could close tomorrow for 15 years, and a great example is Coca-Cola. The stock market could close and people would still be drinking Coca-Cola, People would still be shaving with Gillette razors, eating chocolate, and things like that. And those companies are companies that he believes have a durable competitive advantage. And a durable competitive advantage usually has a consumer monopoly behind it, like McDonald's. They took a generic product, a hamburger, and they branded it. And with the branding of the product, you have a following. You own a piece of the consumer's mind. So when you're likely to think of a cool drink on a hot day, it's either going to be Budweiser or Coca-Cola. When you think about a movie for the children, you're going to think Disney. When you think about chewing gum or chocolate, you're going to think Hershey's and Wrigley's and so on. And those are the kinds of companies with the durable competitive advantage because you can only get them from one place. And that allows the company in a recession and inflation to raise their prices for inflation, and you still have that competitive advantage over your competition.
I think one key thing that actually touched me when I read Warren's works, and especially your works, is to look at it from a business point of view. And you mentioned briefly just now about being able to raise price with inflations. I think Warren also recently mentioned that as one of the key factors in choosing a strong business, that they must be able to raise price. Do you have any additional comments to that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the investing from a business perspective, not from the market perspective. When everybody, we say when everybody's buying and the stock price is going up, it's definitely not when we're interested. When everybody's selling and the stock market is going down is when we're really interested. Now, to your point about being able to raise the price of products, right now, for instance, with Coca-Cola, because of everything that's going on in the world, there's sugar prices, commodities prices. A lot of the things that are used in products that Warren owns and his companies own, prices have gone up. So as those commodity prices go up, they can, because they have a consumer monopoly, because they have a durable competitive advantage, they can raise their price to inflationary levels and continue to make the kind of earnings and profits that they make year after year.
And just now there was, because I remember Warren also say that the market is here to serve us and not to instruct us. So because many people we know that they are in the market and they actually take action based on price itself. So they do not really look at it from a business perspective. And that really changed things. Because when we look from a business perspective, we want to find out whether there's an economic mode, and that will actually allow the business to have sustainable earnings in the long run.
Right.
And so how do we actually find out more if the company has a durable competitive advantage?
There's a few tests. I mean, there's the debt test would be one. Is the company, generally speaking, if the company is carrying 5 times its debt ratio to its earnings, that would not be a good sign for Warren. Mm-hmm. Again, the consumer monopoly. Yeah. Then you just mentioned something else. What was it?
Was it? You mentioned the price with inflation.
The price of inflation,
right.
The ability to price your products. Also, I think, for instance, the Burlington Northern. This is a great example of a company that Warren knows. He bought the railway. He bought those railways because. Yes. It's a method of transportation that is, as gas prices go up, as commodities go up, it's going to be the cheapest form of transporting goods, and that's going to only get cheaper and cheaper. And who knows, eventually it might be even a high-speed railroad, but right. It is the largest railroad across the country, bringing goods from the Midwest to the West Coast to be then put on containers to be shipped overseas. But there was something I'll get back to. I'll think of it.
Yeah.
You jogged my memory about something.
There was another. Okay, I'm actually curious because he was purchasing huge amount of Wells Fargo as well, and the competitive advantage or the economic moat for a bank, that is something that I was pretty much intrigued about. Do you have any things regarding that?
You know, Warren's been buying Wells Fargo since the early 80s, and the same thing with American Express. And, you know, companies that provide, it's not only a service or a product that you continually use, you know, that is always something that Warren's looking for. And the Wells Fargo, he loved because it had been mispriced. You know, it was under book value. So, you know, Warren always says, you know, I don't look at, that was the question. I remember, you know, if he looks at a company, for instance, in the internet bubble, for every bubble there is a pin, and I can name several. You know, at one time there were 100 car companies, there were radio stations, there were 1,000 internet companies, and then what happens is those companies have to use again that cash and stay on top of the market, and yet in one day someone can come out with a new Intel, a new something that completely wipes you out of your you know, established position, and that's something that Warren's not interested in at all. So no, he doesn't watch the market at all, unless it's going down. But he already has his he has companies already picked out. He's kind of like the guy who he knows the girl that he wants to date, but she's dating someone else, so he waits for her to break up with her boyfriend.
Waiting for that opportunity.
Yeah, he waits. He knows what companies are great companies, and then will wait till they're undervalued and then step in and buy.